All right, everybody, welcome. Thank you so much for being here for our first PAC DELAC meeting of the school year. It's been wonderful to see our campuses back and humming with activity, and the kids back on campus and our staff back on campus. We know things are not, 100% back to normal, but it certainly feels wonderful to see our learners back on campuses and to feel like we're getting back in the flow of in-person learning, and it always just feels great to be starting a new school year. So I want to welcome everybody to this meeting. My name is Allison Lanier, and my role is Associate Superintendent of Educational Services. So what that means is I support all of our principals and teachers and kids. Basically anything that has to do with teaching and learning is in my department. And I also have the privilege of working with you as part of our PAC and DELAC. So we'll talk about what is the purpose of this group and what are we going to be about this year in a little bit. But I also wanted to give an opportunity for Sandy to introduce herself, and then Michelle.
Go ahead, Michelle. Let's see.
Hi, I'm Michelle, and I am a director in Ed Services, and I work in our English Learner department.
So Michelle will be the person who is running the meetings when we have our DELAC only meetings. Sometimes we're in joint meeting and sometimes we have DELAC only. So Michelle will be your contact person for all things related to English learners. And Sandy, who is the magic behind the screen and the emails.
I'm Sandy Madlin. I'm from the Community Engagement Office. And if you have any questions or need help getting online, just call me.
Great. And Carrie is with us today too.
I'm Carrie Ito. I work as the Director of Student Support Services. As part of my role, I also supervise all the nurses, and so I'm working with all the health and safety protocols right now with COVID-19 for our district. So so I'm really busy.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm happy to see we have a lot of participants here today. It's wonderful. I see some familiar names and some new names. So thank you. In these busy days, it's just wonderful to see people logging on to these meetings and being part of these discussions. Since we have so many people on the list, it's probably not going to work to do a one-on-one introduction of each person, but I invite you to use the chat to say hello, say which school you're from, and anything else that you'd like to share as we open the meeting. You're welcome to use the chat. And Sandy, I think that's accessible to everybody, correct? Hopefully. Yeah. Great. So we'll just give a minute to see the words popping up in the chat here. Great to see so much engagement from everybody. The September meeting of this group it's usually kind of a bridge meeting. We often have people who were on the team last year kind of carrying over into the fall. Sometimes new members are joining, but usually we don't make that full switch over until October. So thank you to anybody who's attending today to help us get to that October meeting. I know some of you may be planning to rotate off by the time October comes, and that's just fine. We might have some new members at the next meeting. It's sort of a transitional period for this group as we're getting all of our groups organized. So welcome, welcome. Love to see all of the comments in the chat, and I see we have some principals with us here as well. Principals are always invited. They can't always attend every meeting, but they try to pop on when they can. So welcome to our principals who are able to be here as well today. Wonderful. So great. I'll keep my eye on the chat as we see all these hellos and good mornings, and we'll just review the agenda quickly here. We're going to talk about the role of PAC and DELAC just briefly so everybody knows the purpose of this team and what we're going to be about. And then Michelle will talk to us a little bit about reclassification. We will spend a lot of time on the aspects of English learners at our DLAC only meetings, but today we'll just do a little snippet regarding reclassification. And then Carrie will share some health and safety updates. We'll show you where to look on the district website to find information such as the COVID-19 guidelines. And we'll talk about the guidelines for events and volunteers briefly. And then I will share with you what's happening with the ESSER funding. And this is relief funding that the district is getting. Oh, Sandy, we see your screen kind of going all over the place here. Are you okay
Sorry
there?
about that.
Okay. Yeah. So ESSER funds are COVID relief funds, and we're in the process of putting our plan together. And so we wanted to get some of your input prior to bringing our plan to the board in October. Whoops. Can we go back to that agenda slide there, Sandy?
I am not touching them, so I'm not sure how that's happening.
Oh, interesting.
I
Okay.
did share the slides with everyone, so possibly that's the problem, maybe.
I don't think it should be, but I guess we'll just keep going here and hope that we're okay. All right, so moving on to the role of PAC and DLAC, if you could advance us to the next slide, Sandy, that'd be great.
Okay.
I wanted to point out that one of our district priorities, well, maybe what we
Okay.
do, why don't we do this?
Yeah, why don't you just share, Allison, and we will.
Yeah, I won't be able to with my settings on this new computer right now, but I'm going to put it in the chat, and we can just, let's take it off the screen and we can just have people kind of.
I did put the link in the chat, so.
Yeah.
Here we go. Wait, I think
All right. So, yeah. So, I wanted to just share that we have a really important district priority that's connected to our strategic plan. And it's regarding stakeholder engagement and involvement. So on slide 5, on the slide deck in the chat, you can see those 3 district priorities. One is in yellow there, and it's talking about stakeholder engagement and involvement. And it says that we are committed this year to really actively engaging all stakeholders in supporting the implementation of our strategic plan and really bringing that plan to life across our community. So this is part of the role of PAC and DLAC. You are an important stakeholder team, leaders from all schools coming together. And so you are really an important vehicle for how we're going to achieve this goal. So throughout the year, we'll be checking in with you about different topics. Today, ESSER funding is one of those important topics, things that impact how we're operating as a whole district, and your voices will be a really critical piece of our work this year. The other 2 district priorities this year that we're working on are in blue, the academic excellence and personalizing learning, making sure that we're supporting our kids academically, socially, emotionally, and in physical fitness, and really living out our commitment to supporting the whole child. And then also district sustainability, making sure that we develop that long-term fiscal plan to be sure that we can not only navigate declining enrollment, but also live out an equitable, high-quality experience across all schools in our district for the future. So it's really about looking ahead and the things that we want to accomplish and provide for our students looking 5 years and even beyond into the future. So that topic and all of these topics will be addressed at our school sites, but also at the board meetings this year. So I encourage you to stay in touch and be involved in those things as well. If you are new to CUSD or you haven't yet had a chance to look at our strategic plan, you can find the link for that on slide 4. And this is really the anchor for everything that we do in CUSD. And it was built with lots and lots of community input, meetings, and hundreds of voices went into creating this a couple of years ago. So really important to be familiar with what that's about. It's our collective aspirations for what we want to be as a district and what we want to make sure our students gain from being a part of our district. All right, so we're a joint committee here, our parent advisory committee that really helps with that yellow goal around district engagement. And also we have our DELAC parents, parents of English learners, who have unique responsibilities on this team as set out by the California Department of Education. So for this reason, we have some meetings that are focused on DELAC throughout the year. Of course, anybody can come, but we know we're going to be doing DELAC responsibility topics at those meetings, and those things are listed on slide 6. So this is really, at a high level, it's just helping the district steer our focus on English learners and make sure that we are providing communications that are helpful to parents, make sure that we're meeting all of our requirements, and that we set goals in this area every year. So really important role for our DELAC parents, and it's the reason why we put a special effort on making sure that our parents on DELAC are parents of English learner students, because they have that unique view on the experience from a child's point of view and from a parent's point of view on what it means to be an English learner in our district. So Michelle, with that, I'm going to pass to you for talking about reclassification of English learners.
Great, thank you very much. So a few times each year, we look over all of the students in our English learner program to see if they have English skills proficient to be what's called reclassified as fluent English proficient. So in order to do that, there are 4 different criteria that we use. Once a student is reclassified, it's also called RFEP in short terms. It moves them out of being in an active status as an English learner into a monitoring status where they're no longer receiving their daily ELD instruction. They're no longer taking the LPAC, but we do monitor their progress for 4 years. So what I wanted to do today was look over our reclassification criteria and look to make a small adjustment to what that criteria is. So the 4 criteria, the first is the LPAC, the measure of English proficiency, also teacher evaluation, parent consultation, and a basic skills relative to English proficient students, which right now is the CASP. So there's 2 forms we're going to take a look at. The first is the elementary reclassification. So we'll take a peek at that. On here, excuse me, you'll see that this is the letter that families receive when a child is being considered for reclassification. And the criteria are listed about a third of the way down the page. So you see the first one is the LPAC overall result. It is a state requirement that a student have a level 4 on their LPAC as the overall score. Under literacy assessments, these are our local measures that our teachers administer within the classroom to look to see how a child is doing in their class and in their grade with our local district measures. So we have our Rigby and Literably scores for elementary school. We have writing as well. The part that I'd like to look at today are C and D. So with C, we have our CASP, and that is that measure that is empirically established range of performance, as the state calls it. So basically it's a standardized measure to look across the population of students. So currently we have CASP as the only measure in this area. What I'm proposing is that we add iReady. iReady we've been using in the district for a few years now, and we have all schools that now have access to our iReady reading, which is such a wonderful resource. And they also have a measure in iReady that does just what the CASP does as far as that standardized look across students. So the proposal is to use iReady as an additional assessment in that category for C. The D that you see on there, we no longer have the NWEA assessment, so I'm proposing to remove that from the reclassification form so that it isn't just sitting there without a score. We now have our other assessments that have taken the place of that over the years. So that's the elementary version. If we can take a look at the middle school version now. You can see the middle school version here looks a little bit different. There is not the Rigby and Literably assessment for the middle school. So instead you see the LPAC, you see the writing, the CASP, and then iReady as another measure. So again, what we're looking at doing is adding that to make sure that we have all the possible information that we can gather to make sure that students who are ready for that reclassification can qualify properly based on our documents here. So I'd like to ask if anyone has any questions about that, any concerns, any thoughts that you'd like to share as far as making this change.
iReady, has it been independently assessed as far as its effectiveness by any chance?
Yes, it has. And as a matter of fact, there are many districts across the state who have been using it for several years and has been qualified through the state to be used as a measure.
Yes, in fact, last school year, some districts chose to use iReady in place of CASP. During COVID, there were a lot of challenges with administering CASP last spring. So this is another reason why some parents have asked us if we can consider alternate measures. You know, maybe the kids weren't able to show their very best work last spring in CASP due to the challenges of taking the assessment remotely and the new platform and just all that last year resulted in for students. So
yeah, what you just said, Allison, would be my feedback. But I guess if you started iReady in elementary school and the kids were like used to the craziness that goes on in iReady, that'd be fine. I mean, they'll be used to it. When they see a problem that they've never seen before, they won't stop and stall. They'll know to drop it because they weren't expected to necessarily see every problem before. And so that'll help the kids. And if they get trained in elementary school, you know, maybe it'll be a very effective as they grow older. So good luck with that. That's great. Thank you.
Okay.
thank you.
Any other thoughts or feedback on making this change?
And Michelle, I noticed that the links need to be corrected for access so people can click on them. I think it's restricted permission, so.
I will make those changes as soon as I can get off the screen here and make the change.
I have a question. Do we have data on how widely it has been adopted already in the different schools in the district? I know some schools have been doing it a lot, but has it been, do we have any data on that at all?
Yes, so all schools this year do have iReady access. Some schools, all had math iReady. So all of our students have that familiarity with the system with the math component. Some schools had iReady reading a little bit earlier than others, but at this point, they now all have access. So all of our students would be able to use this measure and to be using iReady throughout the year and gain that familiarity with the system itself. So the assessment is really in line with the instruction they've been doing within the program.
Right. And then one follow-up question, for English, iReady versus literally, how do we think about those two? Are they both going to be used in conjunction for evaluations, or because I
Yeah.
think some schools have been using literally, right, for the English language component versus iReady for math.
Correct. So our schools, we do have some Rigby and literally, and some just Rigby or literally. So the way that our reclassification form shows is that it's an and or measure on that. And those scores have been correlated. So there's, for example, in kindergarten, it says C or, I'm sorry, I can't see it right now, so I can't remember what the numbers are. But those have been correlated. And so that whether they use Rigby or literally for that score, they're equivalent.
So that will remain because that's our in-house assessment that the teachers use to check on how it's going. But on letter C there, what Michelle's proposing is that instead of just saying it's only CASP that we're looking at, that we have multiple measures in that category. So if we know based on all of the other indicators that a student is really strong and school staff expect that the child's ready for reclassification, but they didn't hit the mark on CASP, but they have on iReady, we could say yes to reclassification. Sometimes the kids are held up with just that one score, but we can see based on their work, in school and all the other measures that they're ready for that reclassification. So it's just about trying to make sure the kids have every opportunity to demonstrate what they can do. And if they are ready to reclassify, that we do that quickly, because especially in middle school, if students are English learners, they're taking extra courses on their schedule, and in elementary school also having that designated ELD time block. So when they don't need that support anymore, we don't want to continue giving it to them. We want to give them every opportunity to demonstrate their readiness for reclassification.
And then to add on to what Allison just said, our CASP test is once a year. It's a single test at the end of the year. Our iReady, there are multiple opportunities throughout the year. So let's say your child at the end of the year scores just under on the CASP, but on that first go around, the next time when they do their iReady assessment, that might be the only assessment that we're awaiting a proficient score on. So now that opens that criteria up to happen at different times throughout the year, not just once a year at the end. So that allows that fluid movement of students as they gain proficiency throughout the year. So I think at this point, what I'd like to find out is anyone opposed to making this change? Should I go back and take another look? Is there something else you'd like me to think about or consider to propose to the group? Or do we feel as a group that we're okay with this change and ready to move forward?
So I have another clarification question for the 8th graders this year. Are you going to be having them do CASP and iReady? Both?
So they'll take the CASP at the end of the year, the 8th graders. The reclassification of 8th graders is, and Allison may have to step in just a little bit here with me on this one, because last year was such a different year when I was in this role, as far as what assessments were available for students at that time because of COVID. But typically that transition between 8th grade and 9th grade takes a little coordination. And so sometimes the reclassification happens over the summer of that year. So if they get into the high school setting and are ready to reclassify, they're going to have to go under the high school's criteria under their English learner master plan. If we can reclassify while they're still in 8th grade, we would use our criteria. So 8th graders do kind of, it depends when scores come back and whether it's happening on our end or whether it's happening on the high school end.
Okay, so I think I understand you're saying if we agree to this, Then you'll do the reclassification exercise. And then after the reclassification exercise, you'll be able to answer the specific question about 8th graders.
Is your question, Ben, about English learners or all 8th graders?
No, it's not about English learners. It's about CASP math and iReady math for 8th graders.
Right, okay, so right now on our district assessment map, we do have an end of the year iReady measure planned. However, I think what you might be getting at possibly, and something we've heard from staff, is that there's a lot of testing at the end of the year, and should we be doing both or not?
Yeah, that would be my point.
Yeah.
If the plan was to do math CASP and math iReady at the end of the year for 8th graders, I'd say, so what is the plan? So before I say, I'd like to know what the plan is for 8th graders for math, CASP, and iReady at the end of this year.
Yeah, so we do have 4 windows of iReady on our assessment timeline. One at the beginning of the year. Let me click on my middle school map here. One at the beginning of the year to see how it's going. One as we're kind of getting into November. And one in March. And then one at the end of the year. This is something that has been raised by staff as well as, do we need that end of the year for all grades? So it is on the map right now, but it's up for discussion in terms of how we're ending the school year, and do we need all of those assessments? We
And
don't want to be over.
Beginning of year, November, March, and end of year. Are those all CASP, or all those are all iReady?
Those are iReady. Yeah, iReady is usually used, throughout the year as a checkpoint, whereas CASP is the state assessment that we're required to offer to students. Last year, the state gave an alternative to districts. We were already starting our testing, so we did not pursue that alternative. I don't know if they're going to offer that again this year. It would seem unlikely, I would think. It was because of the need to do remote testing last year and the strain that put on districts to organize for that.
My feedback would be do one or the other and do them as infrequently as possible.
Yeah, okay, thank you. And I'm seeing some feedback from principals on, yes, let's keep iReady as an option for English language arts for reclassification purposes, to make that an option when we are giving it. And then any other comments, feel free to put it in the chat or just call it out. Okay, I think we're ready to move forward.
Okay, thank you, everybody.
Thanks, Michelle. All right, Carrie.
Hello, everybody. I'm just here today just to remind you that Cupertino has been trying to make sure that we have a pretty rigorous and relevant website for our dashboard. So these are the document on the left that you see is our health and safety updates, and this is our guidelines for the entire district for the entire year. As we update them, we update those guidelines. So as we get new updates on, seems to me like daily, but it's not daily, but as we get new updates from the California Department of Public Health, we update our guidances so that they become readily available. And so this is a live doc that is constantly changing. So this is this place, and you can find this on our district website. So when you go to our district website and you go there's like pictures in the middle, and then on the right hand side there's a blue area. You'll see one's called reopening /COVID, and you can click on there. And if you go in there, you will see various items that can help you navigate. The key things there are some of the infographics, and then the other thing is also our health and safety guidelines that you can click on, that we pretty much keep updated as soon as we get that information.
Carrie, let's give Sandy a chance to click on that link there where it says update, Sandy, on the slide. Then we can see what Carrie's talking about. Thank you.
So if you see on this page, you'll see that our health and safety guidelines are there. And Sandy, if you can go ahead and click on there. You'll see, and as you continue to scroll, what you will see is we continually, oh wait, stop, go back up, please. You will see as we make adjustments, we date it and we add it. So you can see, oh, if the guidelines have shifted at all, we shifted it on this date and this is what we changed. And in this date, this is the new section you can read. So we're not only are we trying to keep this document as the place where everybody goes, this is teachers, staff, administrators, parents, community members, anybody that wants to know what we're doing. We are also keeping this updated and we're dating those. As you can see, the last update we made the other day was on 8/30/2021. And as we're getting new guidelines, and we are getting new guidelines, we just recently got new guidelines on a couple areas, which we will soon update. And then as we shift into those new roles, we will add that. So we just wanted everybody to understand that this is the document to refer to. If you're having trouble sleeping at night, you can read it. It'll put you to sleep. It might put you to sleep, but at the same token, it's keeping everybody on the same page. So as people have questions that we find over and over again, we start adding those things to the guidelines. So all of our how Cupertino is responding to COVID this year can be found in this guideline. From masking to quarantine to social distancing, anything imaginable. And so we just want to turn people to this document. The other thing is on that page, you can stop, Sandy. On that page, on the district website, you'll see there's some other really, like, we've tried to make some infographics to really help everybody truly understand some of the guidelines that we are facing at schools and questions that we often have. Questions about sibling quarantine. If my child was a close contact in room 5, does her sibling in room 8 have to quarantine? And the answer is no, unless the sibling in room 5 ends up with COVID, right? Which we hope doesn't happen. So we put some infographics on there to help for families to understand the flow. The key thing really is for those that can get vaccinated, vaccination. That's our number one defense. Our second line of defense is masking. Our third line of defense is social distancing. Our fourth line of defense is continue using good hand hygiene. And that's what we are continuing to emphasize in our schools. The other thing is on this dashboard, if you go to the district dashboard, it says the COVID-19 dashboard on the far left, Sandy. See, it says COVID-19 dashboard, down, right there. This dashboard is kept up to date as we have to notify the California Department of Health of incidences for schools, incidences for staff. Some people are wondering, well, how do I know if it's my school? So if you scroll down a little bit more, you can see how many cases are in a school. You can see that not all 26 schools have had a case this year. In fact, most of them haven't. And then you can, if you continue to go back up, people want to know in the moment, you can select a school site. So if your child went to, let's say, you could just pick a school, Sandy, maybe Faria, and you wanted to then click off that. You could pick a date range. So let's say you wanted to know last week. You can hit apply. It'll tell you, okay, last week at Freya, there was 1 positive student exposure. So this is up to date by the moment. So as I report out to the families, I then report it out to the county health. We then add it to our COVID dashboard. So you parents are wondering, hey, how do I know if there's a case on campus? How do I know if it's a teacher or if a student? this will show in the COVID dashboard. So our COVID dashboard is up to date, and we're keeping that very strong as far as information. So it's a moment to moment. People are like, well, why isn't the district messaging every time there's an exposure? And that has happened in some school districts. It's causing a lot of alarm. And so we are making sure that we are providing the information, and families can find this information. If it's something that you're concerned or you're worried about, you can definitely find it on our dashboard. It's pretty, I call it nifty. I think we've done a pretty good job on that. The word nifty might not be the appropriate, but this is something that we are making sure that we keep up to date. And as we report it, both for students as well as staff members, you are able to see that.
I want to thank Carrie in front of the group here, because I think, Carrie has just done a remarkable job, and I want you to know that she takes action when she gets information. It could be 11 o'clock at night or on the weekend, any time of day. She is on it. She is moving forward with the requirements no matter when she gets the information. So she is taking this just extremely seriously, and she's been so diligent about her responsibilities in this area. So I feel very thankful that we have Carrie and our entire nursing team and everyone else involved in this, just keeping it top of mind at all times.
Yeah, thank you, Carrie. That's a great dashboard.
Yeah. I'm glad you find it useful. So I think a lot of people didn't know it was there and existed, and there was some concern in the world. And so I think, as you talk to families, say, hey, did you know that there's a dashboard that you can look it up by school, by date? It's super helpful. So
yes. Another way that you could help us, since you are our amazing volunteers at our sites, we actually have many positions open with this challenge. We have needs for more supervision and more assistance on site, and some of you, or maybe some of your friends at the school sites, could actually be getting paid to be helping us with things like noon supervision and other jobs that we have open. Lots of IA positions, noon duty, other types of positions, and we post those on something called EdJoin that I'm putting in the chat here. If you are interested in working for the district, or you can help us spread the word about vacancies, that would be something else that you could do to help us maintain safety and proper supervision at all of our sites. There's a lot of change happening in the employment market right now, and we're laser focused on making sure that we're filling our positions, and it works out wonderfully when we have people who are internal volunteers who then become employees. So just to put the word out there on that as well. All right, any questions for Carrie before we move on to the next topic? We can either put them in the chat or just call them out. Go ahead.
Sorry, I have a quick question. So are there any triggers that if you hit a certain number, there has to be communication going out to parents in a different way? I'm just trying to figure out,
if we had an outbreak, of course, if we had an outbreak at a school, we would be communicating to families. Okay. Right now, we are communicating to close contacts. So in the elementary school, close contacts end up being the entire classroom, right? In the middle school is a little bit different because we're keeping track of where kids are sitting and where they are. And so close contacts in the classroom become the kids that are sitting around them in their seating charts. I can say to you right now, I'm excited to say that we've had 0 cases where kids have passed it on to another child in the classroom. So it has been kept on. Most of the people that have caused exposures due to a family exposure where they got it, and then the child was at school. A lot of times they were at school like 2 or 3 days ago. And so sometimes we don't find out from families because it takes longer to get test results, right? 4 or 5 days into it. So it's like, oh, well, it's supposed to be a 10-day quarantine, but really it's only, 3 days. It's turning out because it's based on when families go get tested, when we find out the information. But as far as, trying to keep those consistency, like I said, every situation is unique. I've not been able to send out the same message twice. So, and we're taking care of that. We're trying to make sure we take special care in providing accurate information to our families. So as far as if there was a school-wide exposure, you know, in multiple cases, we were shutting down the school, of course we would have to, right? Hopefully we don't, knock on wood, that we never get there. And so really close contact exposure is what we're doing right now. And then everything else people can see on our dashboard.
And just one point of clarification, these statistics have no information on where the COVID was caught, correct? So a student could have caught it off-site and after school, and then been reported, and could have never actually been on campus, and they'll be in the statistic. Is that correct?
No, so kids that are off campus that are not here during their exposure period, or staff members that are on campus that are not here during their exposure period, are not reported. So
Okay.
it's only when there's a positive exposure within a school site based on the fact that the person was on campus during their contagious stage.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
There's a question in the chat for you, Carrie.
We don't hear from the high schools, no. So we are depending on close contacts of close contacts. So if I have a sibling that is a close contact, we are depending on families doing their symptom check, reporting to us and letting us know that Johnny's brother has COVID and therefore we're keeping Johnny home. When I find out about it, then I typically will follow up with the family to find out if you're isolating the sibling, if the sibling's not, or the family members being isolated if they're not. And then I will then share with the families what myself or my nursing team will share with the families when their child can return. Because a close contact of a family member requires you to quarantine. In most cases, because families are not wearing masks 100% of the time when they're at home. It's like the one place you have that relief, right?
Carrie and also members of our HR team meet regularly with members from the public health department. All of this guidance is built upon the guidance that we receive from the health department. So we're ready to handle anything that comes up. Our schools are prepared. Our school staffs have worked so hard to set up the environment to be ready for students, and we're off to a really great start. So thank you, everybody. Any final questions for Carrie?
Yay. Next.
All right, Carrie, thank you. Thank you so much. All right, moving on to the next topic. This is the ESSER 3 funding, and I put the amount there that we're expected to receive. And you've probably seen in the news that school districts have been getting COVID relief funding to address operations as well as student needs as a result of COVID-19. So we are in the process of putting together a plan. It will come through the board meetings in October. And we're in the beginning input gathering stage for creating the plan for this next round of funding called ESSER 3. And our plan will be describing things such as we're required to include how we are preventing and mitigating strategies for the spread of COVID-19. So that's things like testing and disinfection and all of those strategies that we're putting into place. We also are required to use a minimum of 20% of the funds to address the academic impact of lost instructional time. And we're required to ensure that we are using evidence-based interventions. That could be during the school year, or it could be things like summer learning or summer enrichment or after-school programs. The third category is just anything else related to allowable uses. And I put the link there. There's a lot of different things related to allowable uses that are all, I would say, pretty expected given the scope of this. And then the fourth one is that how we will ensure that we are responding in that whole child way, academic, social, emotional, and mental health needs of all students, and that we are paying close attention to those students who may have been disproportionately impacted by the pandemic. So that would be students from low-income families, students of color, English learners, children with disabilities, students experiencing homelessness or in foster care, or migratory students. So our plan will need to address that. And this group, of course, will be centering in especially on those English learners as one category of students who may need some additional support. So on the next slide, some of the things that we are thinking about as we're putting together our plan are things like the district PPE budget, the COVID testing, additional nursing support. We have funds set aside for our students experiencing homelessness or foster youth, extra touch points or assistance with supplies and transportation for homeless students, for example. We have a big focus on reading intervention, especially in our primary grades. We know that being a successful, capable, confident reader has big impacts in our students' lives now, but also into the future. So we have a lot going on in terms of focus in that area. And along with that, what we call TOSAs, Teacher on Special Assignments, to help us get those reading intervention tools in place. We also added a program manager in special education this year, really supporting our families of kids with IEPs as they transition back to in-person learning has some special challenges, making sure that our kids are getting what they need. We have seen an explosion of interest in what was called our home study program. And we have branched out to offer home study in the elementary grades, and then we have a teacher of record and a partnership with a group called Edgenuity, which is like one of the virtual academies for our middle school kids. That home study, independent study program has grown into the size of a whole school. Hundreds of kids have enrolled in that as a choice this year, and that was something that happened over the summer from the governor as a new opportunity for families who wanted to continue virtual learning. So we've been, going as fast as we can to keep up with the demand there and make sure that we can offer our families a choice in that area if they desire it. Also, continuing to upgrade our technology. These are all things that we've been talking about that could fall within the scope of this ESSER 3 funding plan. We would need to use the money by the end of September 2024. And I wanted to invite you to offer some thoughts, if you'd like to, and about any of those things, but also specifically this requirement of using at least 20% related to addressing the academic impact of lost instructional time. So this is asking about what will we do for students, what would be effective and also appealing for kids who might need some more learning time. So this could be in the summer or after school. What, from your perspective as a parent, what are some of the things that you think we should be thinking about when we think about structuring programs to address lost instructional time, and especially thinking about those students who may have been disproportionately impacted? So on where it's yellow there, that is a Jamboard link. If you would like to add some thoughts, I think we've used this before in one of our meetings, but I put a sample there. So Sandy, can you click on that yellow? There we go. Yeah. So Jamboard it's like a Post-it tool for meetings. So over on the left here, underneath the arrow, you can see if you click on that Post-it note, yep, you can add a thought and type something on there if you have something to share. And that way I can keep it all in one spot and it won't disappear with the chat. I'll have it all in one spot as we write our plan. You're invited to share anything that you would like to about what you think we should consider in these programs for addressing lost instructional time. And we're doing the same kind of exercise with our school principals and our teacher union group and our classified unions, just trying to get as much input as we can. And Carrie, I see there's a question in the chat about Oh, I thought it was homeless, but it says homeschooled. What percentage of students are now homeschooled? Every day this number has been growing, but I think last check we were about 300 students. So percentage wise, it's still pretty small, but we've grown from only less than 20 students in recent years to, 300 or so. So it's still only about 2% maybe at this point of our total population, but it's a big growth for us since we were used to having just one class. We've been hiring the last few weeks and adding teachers every week to meet the demand. We are required to say yes to any parent who wants that this year as part of that governor's order to make sure that families have a choice. So it's been fast and furious, but we're doing it.
It's about the same. I don't think there's more middle schoolers than elementary schoolers. I'm looking in the chat at your questions, and is a part of reporting for COVID, we have to report those numbers, and it starts at 5% and we're not there. We don't have a single school where we're at 5%.
Yeah. Is the funding different? No, the kids are still enrolled in our school system. We have some different accounting requirements for how we need to log it and submit the attendance. It's set up differently. Homeschool, home study, or independent study. It's an ungraded program, so a little bit different than traditional school, but it does provide a choice for families who want to remain virtual this school year. A lot of it is independent study guided by the parent too.
When do you need these suggestions by?
Sometime this week would be helpful. You can think about it if you'd like. And it can just be from your perspective as a parent too. When you think about what works for kids and what they need to thrive, and not just academically, but a part of it also is just how they feel about going to a program, right? So think about what from your experience has worked for your kids. When you have that feeling of, okay, great, this was a great investment, this really worked for my kid, what were the qualities of those programs? Because we know that it's not just about giving them the skills. They have to feel engaged and feel that they enjoy it too, for it to work. Give you a few minutes to see if anybody else wants to add anything. We did try something new last summer. We offered a variety of programs, and we were able to expand, what we offered last summer. And we used a combination of our teachers offering skill-based lessons, but then we partnered with a group called Sports for Learning, where the kids had afternoon game time and time throughout the day for physical activity and peer connection. So I think these moments are definitely providing us new opportunities too, to think about different ways of approaching things, and really to think about that whole child commitment that we have, that it's the academics, yes, but also much more than that, helping the kids feel connected to their peers and feel happy about being at school. Good, lots of great ideas coming forward here. Well, keep going with that, and I'm going to keep going with our agenda here. We're getting near the end of the meeting, and This time just flew by for sure. We do have our calendar of meetings set up for the year, and Sandy, I think, sent that out on our agenda. And I know our next meeting is not until October. Let me check the date really quick as we're all sitting here. It's October 26th. So we have some time between now and then. And I'm just really looking forward to digging into our district goals with you this year. We did say last spring that we would come back with some more information about iReady and how we use that for personalizing learning for students. I know we need to follow back up on that. If there are other things that you hope we'll cover at the next meeting or a future meeting, feel free to drop it in the chat, or any other closing comments that you have. Thank you so much for being here and for partnering with us as we start this school year. We're just so grateful for all that you do for our district and for our school sites. And it's just wonderful to be launching another school year. So,
Allison, may I add that our next DLAC meeting is October 5th at 9:45. So just any of you who are planning on attending, if you can please put that on your calendar, we would love to see you.
wonderful. Thanks, Michelle. Any other closing comments from the group?
This is Kathy. I just wanted to say, please do look at that Jamboard later in the week, because I'm going to gather some input from some people at our school.
Absolutely. Sounds wonderful. Thank you. And you can get another page if it fills up at the top there. There's that little arrow to go to the next page. Yeah, wonderful. All right, everyone. I wish you a wonderful week. These short weeks tend to feel busier, so I hope you get a little breathing room this week. And thank you very, very much for being a part of this group, and see you next time. Take care.